Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school. So you can feel cool. Yeah.
Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Allah's World of Finance. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today we're going to be doing a stock analysis video on Roku stock, and it's been one of the most requested stocks, so we're going to go ahead and analyze it. And ticker symbol is ROKU, which is very easy to remember. And they recently IPO'd, so we're going to talk about that. I can't cover every single detail about the company because it would be too long of a video, but I'll do my best to cover as much as I can, and I'll let you know exactly what we're going to cover in a second. A little bit of housekeeping though, before we get started, we're doing another Allah's World Consensus poll question, so make sure that you leave a comment down below letting me know how you would rate Roku stock. So you can either leave a comment saying sell rating, or a hold rating, or a buy rating. And basically, just to let you know again, buy means that you're bullish on the stock, you think it's going to go up, so you would buy some now. Hold means that you're a little more neutral. If you have some, perhaps you're holding it. You don't necessarily know if it's going to go up or down, but you're just kind of waiting to see what happens. But maybe you're not selling the stock either if you're holding it. And if you're not invested in it, then you're probably just not jumping in. You're kind of just neutral, waiting to see what happens. And then a sell rating would be much more bearish, and that would mean that if you have any of the stock, you definitely want to get rid of it. You think it's going to go down. If you're not invested in Roku, you might even consider shorting it. So that's just a very bearish kind of view on the stock. So make sure you leave a comment below letting me know which one of those three you pick, and then I'll tally up all the comments and I'll have the results in a future video, and that way we get to see what the community thinks and how they feel about Roku stock. So make sure you leave a comment below for that. And then the last thing I want to mention really quick is that I recently started a gaming channel, so if you're interested in that, it's called Allah's World of Gaming, and I'll have a link to that channel in the description below. So anyway, with this video, the way that we're going to do the stock analysis video is we're going to have 5 steps. So step 1, we'll be looking at Roku's company and their business model and kind of what they're doing with their core business. Step 2, we'll be looking at their recent IPO and kind of seeing what happened there. Step 3, we'll be looking at the recent stock performance, so we'll just kind of look at the last few days and kind of see like the volatility and things like that. Step 4, we'll be looking at all of their numbers and their performance and analyzing the company, so that's going to be kind of like the meat of the video where we're going to really dive into what's going on with the stock. And then step 5 will be the last step, and that's where I'll give my conclusion, and I'll even give my own personal opinion on a rating. I'll give it a buy, hold, or sell. But again, that's just my opinion. Everybody should make their own decisions. I'm not telling you guys what to do. So anyway, with that, let's go ahead and get started. So step 1, let's look at their company and their business. So Roku Incorporated engages in the provision of a streaming platform for television. It operates through the player and platform segments. The player segment consists of net sales of streaming media players and accessories through retailers and distributors, as well as directly to consumers through the company's website. The platform segment, on the other hand, so there's 2 different segments here. The platform segment includes fees received from advertisers and content publishers and from licensing the company's technology and proprietary operating system to service operators. The company was founded by Anthony Wood in October 2002 and is headquartered in Los Gatos, California. And they have a market cap of $2.3 billion, and they are basically in the electronics and appliances industry, and their sector is consumer durables. So my takeaway from that is that Roku is not just a one-dimensional kind of company, right? Like a lot of people that are analyzing Roku stock, they're saying, you know, Roku only sells these players and these accessories. They're just kind of focusing on that hardware or player segment. But in reality, Roku also has that whole platform segment. So they have their operating system and they collect fees through that. And a lot of people bring up the argument of like smart TVs and stuff like that, but people don't even realize Roku as an operating system is actually being used by a lot of these smart TVs. So that's actually Roku. So I think a lot of people just kind of don't really notice that sometimes, but we're going to take a look at that. We're going to dive more into that, but I just kind of want to make that clear. There's these 2 very real segments here, and the platform segment is definitely something to look at because that's where they can really see a lot of potential growth and increased margins. Okay, so anyway, let's go on to step 2, and that's going to be their recent IPO. Really quick though, I just want to give some of the numbers from the balance sheet here. I was looking at a lot of websites and I couldn't find any numbers. A lot of them are not really reporting anything for their balance sheet, but I did find this one here. I think this is CNN Money, and here it says that in 2016, They had cash of $34.6 million. Cash and short-term investments is basically both at $34.6 million. And then total assets, they listed it at $179.1 million. And then total liabilities, they have it listed at $159 million. So when you look at the total assets to total liabilities, it's basically like a 1-to-1 ratio there, if this is correct. I don't know exactly how accurate this information is, but that's leaning about $20 million in favor of total assets, but essentially it's very close to like a 1-to-1 ratio of assets and liabilities. Now, in its public offering, Roku valuated the company at $1.3 billion. They priced their shares at $14 per share, but when the stock started trading on Thursday, it was at $15.76 per share, and it later went over $20 per share. So in midday of the trading during that Thursday, it actually showed a more than 50% jump in its IPO price. So the stock definitely came out swinging, and a lot of investors kind of jumped in very early. Now, one reason that investors were so eager to jump in on Roku is because of this whole boom of online streaming. And we know from this report here that more than 60% of 18 to 29-year-olds said that they watch TV primarily through online streaming. And so that's one of the reasons that Roku has seen so much increase in competition from companies like Amazon, Google, and Apple as well. Now, in its filing to the Securities and Exchange Commission, Roku said that they have 15.1 million active accounts as of June 30th. They also said that Roku users streamed more than 6.7 billion hours on the platform, and this is coming from the first 6 months of the year, and that's up 62% from the same period in 2016. They also said that they have generated $199.7 million in revenue in these first 6 months, and in the fiscal year of 2016, it generated $398.6 million in revenue, which was an increase of 25% from the year prior in 2015. Okay, step 3 here, we're going to look at Roku's recent stock performance. So right now they are at $23.63. Their 52-week low was $15.75. As we mentioned, they opened up higher than their IPO, and their high was 52-week high was at $29.80. So that was significantly higher. I mean, that's more than a 100% increase there. And as of now, let's look at their week performance here. On last Friday, they were up over 5%. On Monday, they were up over 5%. On Tuesday, they were down over 6%. Wednesday, they were up over 3%. And then today, which is Thursday, they were down 0.42%. So for the 5-day change, they're still up over 7. And you can definitely see here that they have gone up quite a bit since their IPO. So they are still valued pretty high, in my opinion. Anyways, now let's move on to step 4, and let's look at the company's performance, and we'll look at the numbers a little bit closer. Okay, let's start by looking at some of Roku's products. So they had 2 HDMI streaming sticks and 3 set tops, but they recently replaced those, and they've just announced these new products here. And so they have 3 HDMI sticks now and 1 set top. Now, the cheapest of all of these products is the $30 Roku Express stick, which is probably going to be what sells the most, in my opinion, because it seems like a lot of people are buying these like sticks over the set tops. Although the set tops are still pretty popular from what I've seen, but it looks like the sticks are kind of really taking over right now. And that has a processor that is 5 times more powerful than the prior generation Express stick. And that stick also sold for $30 when it came out, so it's basically same price but 5 times more performance, which is a good thing. Now, there are also Express Plus sticks. I'm not going to cover those too much. They're just a little more expensive, but they also offer composite video cables in case you have those older TVs that don't have HDMI ports. Now, those are the cheaper sticks, but what was Roku's actually most popular streaming device was their regular Roku streaming stick, and that is still at $50, so it's a little more expensive than that $30 Express stick, but that one has 50% more processing power than the previous generation, and it also has a remote with a voice search button, and that feature was only previously available on the Ultra set top from a previous generation, so now they actually have it in the Roku stick. Now they have that functionality there. So I know this might get a little complicated kind of keeping track of all these products here, but basically the $50 streaming stick now has some of the same features as that set top had before with that voice searching functionality. Now, the third stick, because we mentioned that there's going to be three, right? So there's the Express, the regular, and there's a third one now. This one is the 4K version. And so this is the Pro model, or what do they call it? They call it Plus. So they call it Streaming Stick Plus, and it's $70. Okay, so we went from $30 Express, $50 regular, and now we're at $70 the Streaming Stick Plus, and that has 4K functionality. And so that's the reason why it's more expensive. It also has HDR video. Okay, now we mentioned that there is also a set top, so we have those three sticks and a set top. The set top is the Roku Ultra. This Ultra, it costs $100. The previous one costed $130, I believe, and so now this one's $30 cheaper. It has 4K functionality, HDR functionality. They added a power button to the remote so you can turn off and on the Roku set top, the Ultra. And it also has an Ethernet port, a micro SD reader, has a voice search button on the remote. It even has a remote finder functionality, so if you lose your remote, I guess it'll help you find your remote. And the other set tops, the Premier and the Premier Plus, those are getting discontinued. So that's basically the lineup. Three sticks and that one set top, it's the Roku Ultra. Now, Roku also announced Roku Operating System 8, and so this new version of their operating system now has some improved functionality for browsing over-the-air channels and streaming content, and then it also improved some of the voice search functionality. We mentioned that some of these remotes are going to have voice search buttons on them now, and so that got improved a little bit as well. And they also added single sign-on support for pay TV channels. Now, when looking at competition from Amazon, Amazon also has the Fire TV stick. That costs $40, whereas Roku's Express stick is $30, so it's $10 cheaper for the Roku stick. However, you have to keep in mind, I think that Roku does not support Kodi, and I know that a lot of people use Kodi now. I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm not exactly sure how legal it is, but I just know that a lot of people use it, and I believe a lot of people use it with Amazon, and I'm pretty sure that Amazon is compatible with it. So for $10 more, you can have something that's compatible with Kodi. The other thing is that Roku also has the Streaming Stick Plus that has 4K functionality. That costs $70. That matches Amazon's Fire Stick TV dongle, which also has 4K functionality, but that one is also $70. So that's kind of a one-to-one match with Amazon. Now, in terms of competition from Apple, Apple's set top is at $180. And so even with Amazon's Fire TV dongle, that's at $70. If you went $30 more for Roku's Ultra, that's at $100 and you get a lot more functionality. And then Apple comes in at $180. So at this point, I can't even imagine that people would actually buy Apple's product, but I guess people will. But anyway, Apple, I'm sure that they're probably making some good profit from that. I'm sure their margins are actually a lot better than Roku and Amazon. But you have to remember that Roku and Amazon are also kind of selling their platform, right? So if you get their devices, then you're going to be using their platform, and a lot of the money that Roku makes can actually come from royalties from using their operating system and things like that. Okay, so we just talked a lot about Roku's hardware products in their player segment, but looking at Roku's platform segment, revenue from their platform segment was up 91% annually in the first half of this year, and they saw a 42% increase in active user accounts. Now, the platform revenue only accounts for 41% of Roku's total revenue, but it also produced 81% of its gross profits, and that's because it has a 76% gross margin, so very good margins in their platform segment. Okay, now Roku's player segment and hardware segment has pretty much flatlined. A lot of people see that as a negative and as a loss for Roku, and I think that that's where a lot of negativity comes in on Roku's stock. They see it as one-dimensional, just kind of selling these players, but you have to keep in mind that the platform segment is doing very well, their operating system is doing very well, user accounts continue to grow, and I think a big reason why is because they have these deals with these TV manufacturers. In fact, they have deals with Sharp, Hitachi, TCL, RCA, and other TV manufacturers as well. And Roku actually expects to be running their operating system on over 150 TV sets in North America alone this year, and that's up from 100 the previous year. And Amazon's Fire operating system, or whatever they call it, that's only running on a handful of TVs. So that's a big difference there. So I think that that's where Roku can continue to grow their user accounts and collect fees from that platform segment. Okay, last step here, step 5, is to give a conclusion. So I just mentioned all the deals that they had with TV manufacturers and how the platform segment is growing. I think that all of that is important, and the gross margins are very good in their platform segment, but I think that the player segment is kind of holding them back. And based on their S1 filing from the company, their player segment accounts for around 59% of their revenue, whereas the platform segment is about 41%. So I feel I have some mixed feelings on that, because on one hand, there's most of the revenue comes from the player segment, and the player segment is struggling. In fact, I'll kind of talk about some margins here in a second, but that also means that there is room to grow for their platform segment, because eventually the platform segment could overtake it. And I think that that's where they really need to focus. They need to focus on the platform segment, get it into more smart TVs, keep growing user accounts, and keep growing that average revenue per user with fees and all that kind of stuff. Now, margins in general for Roku have not been doing well, and I think that that's a big reason why is because of their player segment. And so looking at that, gross margin was 18% in 2015. It declined to 15% in 2016, and then in the first 6 months of this year, 2017, it dropped to 12%, and that's from 16.6% the year before during the same time period. So their overall margins have been going down, and I think a big reason why is because of their player segment, but hopefully that will improve because of their platform segment. So if you're invested in Roku, I think that you're really invested in that platform segment and hoping that, a lot of these smart TVs and everything, they kind of it'll just be kind of natural for them to have Roku on them. Now, there is a big concern from a lot of their competition, and as we continue to see cord cutting, that can be a pro and a con, right? As you continue to see cord cutting, people will start turning over to online streaming, and so Roku is a big player in that, but that also means that other companies are going to want a piece of the pie, and so that's going to attract big sharks like Amazon, Apple, and Google. However, Roku has been able to be dominant even though there are these huge competitors, so I guess that's a good thing that they have still been able to be dominant, but these other companies don't live and die from this online streaming platform and players. They have all these other aspects to their companies, so they don't need this. And they are also humongous companies that can just throw any like a humongous amount of money towards it, and it doesn't really affect them. Whereas Roku just like really lives and dies by this. So if they start struggling, they'll really struggle. So how do I feel about Roku stock overall? To be honest, I guess I would give it like a hold. In my personal opinion, I would not invest in Roku. Not that I don't see the potential in Roku, because I absolutely do see the potential in Roku and in their platform segment, but it's a little bit of a risky stock for me, and there's some heavy competition in there, man. So like, I already invest in some somewhat risky stocks. I invest in AMD, which to me is risky enough. I'm kind of sick of seeing AMD like flatlining. I want to see AMD take off already. But anyway, with AMD, I'm being patient, and I'm kind of waiting. And a lot of my other stocks, I'm trying to be patient and things like that too. But my point is that I'm already investing in some stocks that I don't feel extremely comfortable with, and I'm actually more comfortable with stocks like AMD than I am with Roku, to be honest, because I'm just not too sure with Roku. I'm a little iffy on it, so I give it a hold. That's my rating. I think a lot of people are probably going to give it a sell. Maybe some will give it a buy. We'll see. But anyway, what do you guys think? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to vote. And I think that's about it. So if you're new, please subscribe. If you like the video, please hit the like button. It really helps me out a lot. And if you watch this entire video, then you are definitely the platform segment in Roku, and you are the only thing that Roku has left right now. So that's not true. They have other things too. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you all have a wonderful, beautiful day, and that you take care. Bye.